Well, great to be here with Frank Warren. It's the beginning of Dubois versus Joshua fight week, Wembley Stadium, Riyadh season. Frank, first of all, is this as big as any event you've ever promoted?
Yeah, it's sold over 90,000 tickets. And that's it. The biggest event we've ever promoted was Tyson against Dillian Whyte, and this looks like it's going to beat it. So the answer to that is emphatically yes.
Is this a bigger fight then than that one was?
No, I think I don't know really. I mean, you know, Tyson's homecoming. It sold out in an hour. In the line, people in line for tickets. There was 400,000 odd people in line for tickets. So that's what it was.
And presumably, your feeling is that Tyson Fury bigger star than Anthony Joshua as well at the time.
Well, he was, wasn't he? No doubt about that. No doubt about that. He was a bigger star.
You've got five.
But you know, the tickets tell you what it's all about.
Yeah. No, it's enormous.
Yeah.
And there's records being broken.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's the fire lit by His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh as well. Can we mention him?
You just
Can it's going to be a long and funny week.
Yeah.
I did mention him, but you know, it's 15 months ago you told me, and you did tell us on talkSPORT, there's a game changer coming.
Yeah.
And is it fair to say that game changer was His Excellency the Minister Turkey Al Sheikh?
It was that. And Riyadh season is to get us where we are. And since the first show, which was last October, it's changed the whole dynamic of boxing. You know, Riyadh is now synonymous with the biggest fights that take place in the world, or some of the biggest fights. It's the Riyadh season fights that take place in Riyadh, and those cards are just unbelievable from top to bottom. The show they did out in LA with another fantastic undercard again was a phenomenal event. But I think this one here, the Wembley edition of the Riyadh season, is something special. The amount of tickets that are sold, the fabulous event we got. I mean, a most unbelievable main event and an unbelievably fabulous undercard.
As you say, Battle of the Baddest. What was it? Day of Reckoning, Knockout Chaos, Ring of Fire.
Yeah.
The LA card, and now this in 6 events.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that the blue ribbon division is the talk of the sport now.
Oh, it is, without a doubt. Without a doubt. You know, all the fights we were trying to make have happened. It's so lively. And you look at the fights that happen. You look at the fight on Saturday. You look what's happening again in Riyadh on the 21st of December, the rematch between Usyk and Tyson. And you look at what can come out of that, the fight, you know, the winners and the losers fighting each other.
You're very protective over Daniel Dubois, if you don't mind me saying, because he's been like a son growing up in front of you in lots of ways, a young man growing up, and you've put your protective arm around him at time, you've put your shield up, you've put your sword up for him. He's under a lot of pressure this week, in my view. Do you agree or not, or do you think Anthony Joshua's under more pressure?
I think Anthony Joshua's under the pressure. I think he's a guy in his, 30, what's he now,
35?
35?
I think he's 35, I think.
35, so he's in his mid-30s. He was 5 fights, he'd lost 3 of them. I think it was 3, wasn't it?
It was.
And he's got himself on track. He's had a comeback. He's got a new trainer who's a very good trainer in Ben Davison. Is it Alanius, Wallin, and Nagano? And he's done what he's had to do in those fights. He's done what he's had to do. But I think you look at Daniel, and in his last 3 fights, he's been an underdog in all 3 of those fights. I keep banging on about the low blow or whatever, but the fact of the matter is at that time, that was the toughest fight that Usyk had. He gave him a much tougher fight than AJ did.
And Chisora,
yeah. And Chisora, and hurt him. And the other 2 fights where he went as an underdog, he beat both Babe Miller and Hrgovic, who was the mandatory for nearly 2 years, and everybody was avoiding.
Is Daniel under more pressure in terms of requirements from him this week? Though we're on a Monday night, it's 7 p.m. He's got to do lots of interviews all week. I know that he looks to you for guidance, doesn't he? Because he doesn't want to do all those interviews. He's not naturally disposed to that.
It's not his thing. He likes to do his talking in the ring, and that's how he is. But it's been a lot of fighters like that over the years. I mean, George Foreman, the first coming of George Foreman,
never
couldn't
said
get
a word.
out. All he done was grunted.
Yeah.
That was it. Joe Frazier weren't really, not everybody was Muhammad Ali. Not everybody was Tyson Fury. you know, and AJ had a lot of grounding in it, going back to the Olympics and before then. You know, he was he went through all the motions. You know, Daniel never had any senior bouts as an amateur. He's gone from a kid straight into the professional ranks, and at his age, you look at his resume. At his age, you compare them. He's got a best at that age, and that point in his career, he's got a better resume than most heavyweights out there.
The team are telling me that Anthony Joshua's 34. Forgive me, but it doesn't matter with Frank because he wants you beaten up on Saturday nights anyway.
I always exaggerate.
Yeah, of course. You simplify, you research, and you exaggerate.
He's in his 35th year.
Exactly. You're absolutely
Correct.
spot on, as always.
Yeah.
Where does this rank in heavyweight fights with all British, like Lewis and Bruno being the big one 31 years ago? You and I spoke about it on the phone.
Well, there's
over
been
the weekend.
some great ones over the years. I mean, this is up there with all of them. It's up there with the fact the IBF title's now on the line. It ranks there with all of them. Same as Tyson's one with Dillian Whyte at the time. He was the mandatory challenger. As I said, it was a huge event. It was the biggest event to ever take place. Not boxing event, any event at Wembley.
But you'll remember Bugner and Cooper. I remember Bugner and Cooper. And even though we adopted Bugner as a Brit, even though he's Hungarian, wasn't he? And then now he's Australian.
Well, he was a Brit.
He was a Brit.
Yeah.
But he lost by a quarter of a point to Harry Gibbs,
the
referee.
It's
a national disgrace. How did you feel about that fight? Do you remember it? 1971.
Yeah, I did.
You were in a whippersnapper then.
I was 19. I went to see it, and I thought he won it.
You do think that?
I thought he won it. Yeah.
Bugner.
I thought Bugner won it. And
he was brilliantly defensive, wasn't he, in lots of ways as a fighter?
Joe. I mean, I promoted Joe.
That's right. Of course you did. Took him to ITV, didn't you?
I brought him back, and and he came back here. Joe was he was a big man. He was a very good heavyweight. The problem is with Joe, he thought if he weren't getting hit, he was winning.
Yeah.
But he went the distance with Ali.
He did. 15 rounds.
Frazier.
It's 15 rounds as well.
I remember Hugh McIlvenney. It was a very defensive performance, and all the press got peed off of him, and he went back to the hotel immediately after that fight. And he was swimming up and down in the pool, and everybody was pissed off with him, saying, "How can you swim up the pool? If you'd have put more into it, you may have come through it," because he just didn't quite do that. And they was all being quite, having pops as the press do. You know that. As the press had a couple of pops at him, and then. And once somebody asked him who he would fight next, after having just had a world title fight against Muhammad Ali, and he had quite a high-pitched voice, and he said, "I'll even fight Jesus Christ next." And the late Hugh McIlvenney came up with one of my greatest one-liners ever. He said, "You only say that because you know he's got bad hands."
On the card, let's just talk about that heavyweight fight just before we move on to the other fights in the card. You're convinced then Daniel Dubois will do a number on Anthony Joshua. Presumably it'll be a knockout in your view.
I don't think it'll go the distance because of the nature of the two guys, the way they fight, and they you see that fight with Hrgović. He took a few punches to a few right-handers.
Can Joshua take it though? That's the question, isn't it?
That's the thing. He's got the better chin, but I think he punches harder AJ than Hrgović, but Hrgović is a better boxer than I thought was a better boxer than AJ.
I think you've got five of the fighters on the card in terms of the we go down the card. Hamza Shiraz, Tyler Denny. Thoughts on that?
I fancy Hamza. I'm a big, obviously
Stoppage.
I've been a big believer in him. I think he can do that, but he mustn't take it for granted. It's no foregone conclusion. The other guys created a lot of upsets.
Turkey Al-Sheikh's favourite boxer, Mark Chamberlain, against Padley.
Yeah, well, he's got to keep doing what he does, and if he does, and he's been in spectacular form, that could be another stoppage.
Kakachi against Warrington, the Apache Kakachi against Josh Warrington.
I fancy Anto to do the job there.
IBO is on the line, not the IBF.
I think that's
right,
the way it is, yeah.
And this is a brammer of a fight for me. Willie Hutchinson. He did the job against Craig Richards. We both picked him to do it out in Riyadh, 5v5. The night you did 5 against Eddie, 10-0, 5 on the plane, all the 5s. You still taking the piss out of him or not?
No, I'll give him a rest now.
Well, it's Boatsy against Hutchinson. Can your guy Hutchinson do it against, I think, another level up, I think Boatsy is?
Well, I don't know if he is another level. I think when I looked at what's his name, the previous guy. You look at him. He had a split decision against Bivol, didn't he? Was it Bivol? He had the split decision against.
No, Craig Richards had a split decision.
Split decision. So,
yeah, he did have.
So
a
he's no
decision,
slouch,
yeah.
is he?
Yeah,
He's
we
no
were at the
slouch,
fight. I was at the fight. It was a good performance.
Slouch, it was a good performance. And Willie did, I think, what nobody else has done with him. And Willie has. When I signed him, I thought he was going to be one of our best prospects, without a doubt. Highest decorated amateur boxing Scotland's ever had. As Josh Boazzi was a medalist in the games and highly decorated. They've had a lot of spars together over the years when they were younger.
He just had a little dip, Willie, and came back then, didn't he?
Willie, I was speaking with, we was doing talkSPORT earlier today, and Spencer said that he'd spoken to him and he shouldn't have gone down to super middleweight and stayed up.
Agreed.
And that's a good point.
However,
that's what happened, and then he had a few personal things were going on in his life, and he took a bit of time out, came back, and since he's come back, he's done what he's had to do. It's going to be a good fight. He's very, very confident, very, very confident, and I think he has tools to beat Joshua Boazzi.
Final question, two-pronged one. I understand that you there had been an offer to Anthony Yard at some point to face Joshua Boazzi on this event, but obviously they've declined it.
Didn't happen yet.
What a shame.
Well, it is a shame, but Willie's in there now.
And Willie's in there now. What was it like working with Ben Shalom with Boazzi on this card?
I didn't do it. It was done with George.
George doing it.
Yeah.
You get all the glory, all the champagne corks popping.
I'll have all the glory if he does the business.
That's fair. That's the way it is. I hope you're listening, George. Thank you very much, Frank.
Cheers, my son.
Cheers. Thank you.
Well done.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.